Hello to everyone. I hope you hear the sound. And welcome to our sixth edition of Person and Touch project, which is artist talks with practicing media artists and people who do something in the field of media, art and technology. And today I want to introduce my old friend Roy Gerritsen from the Holland, from Amsterdam, and my friend Fallon. I think first time we met with Roy, it was almost precisely 10 years ago. We organized a small advanced touch designer workshop in Amsterdam, and it was a very star community met there. So it was very intense week of teaching and exchanging experiences. And since then we became not oft seeing between us, but good friends and same-minded people. And I'm really happy to have you on the stream. And also some short word about Fallon. Fallon is a person who works super long time in education and also a big professional in sound, and he is currently collaborating with us as a head of education of How to Touch project. So that's why we are sitting here together. Hope we are both in Berlin, so it's easy to organize. And welcome everyone. You feel free to ask questions in chat. Hey Shandor, I see you online. So I provide word to Roy.
Yeah, well, thanks. Do you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And fun to do this catch-up talk. Shall I first dive in the projects that we did? Like tell a bit about our backstory and what we did? Like we, as you said, like in 2000, when was it? 2014 when you had the workshop. Like I was already a bit busy with touch, and then that was actually the time that Tim joined in. Like he was really against my brother. He was really against touch because he had to have node-based stuff, and he was a programmer. But then when you showed him shaders and OpenGL, then he got really into it, and then we started working more and more in it. And in 2018, we formed our studio, and then we switched completely to using touch. Like before, background is in festival world. My personal background, I was always designing and CD covers and vinyl sleeves and flyers and that sort of stuff. All my friends were DJs. And then I started VJing, bigger jobs, more motion graphics. And then at one point, we switched into the more generative side in the programming to create the systems instead of only the output. And now we're the four of us. So it's me, my brother Tim, Rogier, and Max. And then apart from that, like we want to keep the company small, to don't have a lot of overhead and stuff. But we work with a lot of touch designer. Like it's basically one big family and bigger projects, like the AMAZE project that we did. Shandor, for instance, we got over, and with Darian and Nixart, and we work a lot with different people. So I have 6 projects, and it might be a bit much to show.
Yeah, let's see. We are really interesting about the story and the projects, because first I want to say that from every picture I see from your site, it always a nice touch of very stylish design, which is like significant to mention. And also I suppose touch designer is a tool which provides the possibility for a small crew, if you involve enough brain and structure in work, to make huge projects in relatively simple situation.
Yeah, true. All the protocols and stuff are in there, so you can definitely focus on the creative side only. And it does help that Tim has a lot of he has a programming background. I have a design background, and that because we're brothers, we can easily merge, and that helps because for a lot of stuff we use like heavy programming mathematics background, but then yeah, I like to do the final touch and like the design stuff with it. One thing when it really hit off like was during the COVID time for us. Like we were living above a club in Amsterdam. COVID, the club was empty, so the idea came like, okay, let's start building like an immersive testing ground. Let's try to set up what we did in the festival, but then in an interactive place. But that got a bit out of hand, and then in the end it was 9 different rooms, and it's still open now today. Like apparently people really like it, and it's still a lot of people coming. This is a quick, like the sound doesn't come through, so I'll just keep on talking over it.
Yeah,
this whole
just to add that after the stream we will edit the recording, so we record now on 3 cities and 3 countries in the same moment, and we will cut the video and upload to our Instagram, so you will have a possibility to relook to the recording with the sound.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, this was a really fun project because it was it was only aimed for the COVID time, so we aimed for like 7-8 months. So everything had to be produced like really quickly, and therefore also there wasn't really a plan. We planned the rooms out, and we got a really nice team together, and then we just started building over there. And it was a fun adventure. It was also really hard for us because like without the planning and stuff, it was quite a lot of work, and also getting the building an interactive place is something else than building a festival. And with the client identity, there was a bit of friction at one point. Like, okay, what is it? Like, how do we add interactivity, or is it the show, stuff? But this really taught us a lot of stuff. How to set up not only interactive installation, but also the whole system. Like, how do you control everything, and how do you make everything running that it keeps on running?
I was going to say that must have been a real challenge, Roy, because it looks fairly complex, doesn't it, with lots of different types of interactivity.
Yeah. So yeah, but and I mean that's also basically like if you divide up everything in small chunks, and that's where the name YFX comes from. Like if you we divide everything up with an input, then a process, and an output. And then, for instance, like the big light room, like the output is light and the input is like a controller or something. But this is a recursive system, like you can go deeper and deeper and deeper. But in the end, it will always stay like this simple method, and therefore you can do. It looks really complex to do 1,000 lights, but yeah, I mean, if you do 1 or 1,000, doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, doing that on the go was something we learned from a lot. Yeah, and we did redo a lot of stuff because we can't do it. At the same time, we did the remastered as well in Rotterdam, similar place. The other one was more for all the lights, and so this is 4 different rooms. We focused on the fish room, but we had LiDAR scanners on the wall and made like an immersive room where you could touch all the walls and interact with it. And the good thing about it was fun to see, like, because we were testing here, like 3 people, 2 people, but then when it opened, it's like 50 people in there. But we were really happy to see that with all the LiDAR scanners and stuff, it held up. So you see all the people touching and waving to the fish. So there was also the same period. Then jumping forward to the projects that we're busy with now. Things that we're really passionate about. One is the telescope project. At one point, the director of the telescope, Romano, he approached Derivative because he really wanted to integrate touch design in the whole workflow. And then Jacob did an internship there. Like he came to our studio and to see if we could do it a bit together, and we helped him a bit with it. And then at one point we did more and more, and now they got the question they asked us to build a digital twin. So what they do there is like make pictures of the space, It's the largest optical telescope, which means like there's a big mirror, getting all the photons in, and then taking pictures in like a day or a night, for instance, where the telescope is rotating next to the Earth and then focused on one spot and can look really deeply into space. When in the beginning, like they asked us to make for the visitors, basically to make something that looks nice. The problem is with all the scientific thing and space stuff that the people there are really smart. They're really, but also really theoretically. And what we used to from all this stuff is from Hollywood, from sci-fi movies and things like that. That you have all these super high-tech things. But in reality, there's so much data, and the people that are building this software and this stuff are all the scientists themselves. Like there's no shop where you can buy telescope software or telescope.
Yeah, I guess so, it's the exciting bit, isn't it, about that mix between science and engineering and art is always like a real funky place to be, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and also because it really means that they actually use this. That really means a lot. Like it's not fluff only.
Like sometimes. Yeah, I know Greg from Derivative was excited about this project, wasn't he? Because he did engineering or aerial engineering when he was a student, didn't he? Back in the day. So yeah.
Yeah, he worked on the space shuttle. He did the arm for the space shuttle. And Isabel as well, she loves stars. And so yeah, we're still, like, it's an ongoing process. The difference with the festival world is that always has to be done like in the last 2 weeks. So it's really stressful and really fast-paced. This is like a longer period, so it's an ongoing project, which is also really nice. We can take a step back and then get back into it. And what we made was a touchscreen interface. There's a big screen on the control center in there where they control the telescope. So we made a touchscreen interface which basically mimics the whole telescope, like all the sensors, all the equipment, there's camera systems in there. So it serves as a purpose, one, to show for visitors that come by how does a telescope work. Because in essence, it's quite simple how the whole thing works, but it looks really complex. Then we added some extra functionality for security-wise, because when they take a picture, then everything has to be super still. Like every movement will distort the picture. So if someone's walking there, that already distorts the whole thing. So there needs to be like a good security system that everything is clear to make the picture. And then there's some extra options for it to show like how dirty is the mirror and is all the temperatures right and all that stuff. So that's for operating. And then now we're in the process to also make like an experience center or update it. They already have one, but to update it and to include like a robot in there. And really interesting project and amazing people, really smart, nice, awesome people. It's like a dream job. So totally opposite. It's like the festival world, like that's also our background, like a lot of music, always with music related things. And there's this one company from Holland, ADNT, they do big, large scale events. And we've been working with them for quite a while. And then they have this festival called Mysteryland, which was last August, where they had, normally all the stages were really decoration, all hand painted and stuff, and now they switched to all LED, or a bit like the way with 2 inflatables, but really a lot of LED stuff. And we wanted to make something which is a bit different than just really big TVs. So we approached it, we want to do a couple of things, and basically it's like 5 different projects in one project. Where we did mostly the end show. There's always an end show in the festival, in the end of the festival, mainly because they want people to relax and have a moment to calm down before everyone goes back. But it's always like it's a 12-minute sync show with pyro and with drones in this case, and lasers and lights and visuals, where the music is like the main script, and then we animate everything to it. So we build like all these animations, mostly in Touch, some in Houdini. So there was one part, like all the content making, but what we really liked was I'll come back to this later, is making an instrument out of it. Like instead of controlling everything with video and pressing play, we wanted to have full control over it. So for the opening hours, like in the first 2 hours of the day, we made like real-time patches, which we could control from the front of house. So the whole thing became like more like one with the stage. So it's not meant to as a TV that you constantly see new input. It's more like an evolving system. And this part we really enjoyed making. This example we see now is like a shader, which worked really well. So they made a ray marching shader, and we put like small scratches on the side, so it looks like it's a glass thing. And then we used the camera filming the sky to put on the background. So it really looked like it was like this glass box standing there.
Yeah, it's an insane idea. We have questions from Jean-Francois asking if hands were the volumetric structure.
Yeah. There's one company called Airworks, and they build inflatables. So they, I don't know, maybe you can see it in one of the pictures here better. But it's, here you see it.
Yeah, it's visible. All the amount of phones on the dance floor showing the great success of your concept.
So the whole thing was like a dynamic, evolving performance for you then, wasn't it? If you're interacting with that system you built as a performance, you had controllers and you're mapping parameterization and stuff. Wow.
Yeah. The only problem is, like, because of these festivals and these stages are mostly the more popular electronic music festivals. So there's a lot of popular DJs playing there as well, and they want to show their set, and they mostly have a VJ or have content stuff with it. So later in the day, more and more people got their own content to be shown, and so that's why we really like to test it and do it in the early hours, because then it's basically like a.
But you've got a really beautiful design aesthetic, as Stanis said. So when you did this project, how much of a brief did they give you about the design? Was it more you guys coming up with creative ideas, or did they give you some, brief that they wanted you to try and meet?
Yeah. It depends a bit on the project. With these guys, like we've been working with them a long time, so we know what they want and they know what we want. And in this particular thing with the instrument stuff, we were totally free. Do whatever you want. Like the end shows, of course, there's an entire script. So, but then also like we go back and forth. Like so we use this or this, and it's really you build it all together. But for the problem what we had like over the last years a lot is that people don't understand the process of generative code. It's not like a motion graphic project where you can do like a style board. Like it's something that evolves, and the program itself makes the whole design. So you can only show them when it's done, and that's quite of a problem. So we're looking mostly for long-term clients. We also don't see clients as the clients, but more like a member of our team, where you can just like go back and forth with. And that works well.
We have a questions from Pavel Zmunchila, who is one of main heads from Setup Design. And he's asking, did you control it, synchronize it, lighting as well?
During the day stuff, it's all the DJ playing. Over the day, we only did the video. Because lights you don't really see. The end shows is all synced, but it's time code based. So it's like the process is there, that there's one audio file, and that's basically the main script. and then every discipline like pyro, the fireworks, and video and light, they all program on the same timeline. So then it's completely sync, but made before. There's one other project, and maybe I want to show that we are doing that. The one last thing with this thing, we used also, because it was a 3D cube, and there's a lot of problems with perspective, especially for guest operators. When you come, you have your 2D content, it's hard to map it on a 3D cube. Especially the bigger DJs, they fly in, they do the show, and they go off again. So we made one small remapping tool, in this case for Charlotte de Witte, where René, the VJ, plugged into a system, and then we translated it all into the 3D stuff on the cube. So then we could have best of both worlds. He could have like a whole show set up for his set, but still the stage and the screen could be one. Because I really hate it when you have all these big screens and they show like totally different stuff, and it's just a disconnect. And now especially screens are getting really cheap relatively, so you should make good use of it and not just flashing with it.
What was the pre-production time on this, Roy? How long did you have to get everything configured and set up? And
yeah, well, that's the annoying thing about festivals. You start like a year before, and then like half a year before, all the budgets are done, and the stage design is done, and all that stuff. But then before you could really start producing, because you're the last one in line, the content thing, I think the festival was on the 29th of August, and we got the music on the 8th of August. So it's like really last minute stuff. And that's, yeah, that's just annoying. But we did a lot of it before. I think in March we got approached, and we got into it. I think like two months, let's say.
Was it a real-time simulation, or is it just pre-produced?
Yeah, we did two versions. This one it's all like the content that we made is all real-time, but then we recorded to put it in the end show stuff. So the end is just display, but all the this is real-time. Like I'm not sure. Yeah. And then we did two renders, one for the bottom one and one for the top. And this is a particle system that Tim made.
We have a question from Leo Giardi. Is it possible to have live interactivity, or timecode is a must in such complex configurations?
No, of course, like for sure, real-time stuff. But I mean, like technically, it's super easy. You can do it. I mean, you have a time thing, and somebody has to play. You can do everything real time. But because there's so much stuff involved, like with fireworks, with all the lights and things like that, and you want it to be perfect, so there's no real need to do it in real time. You can do it.
Depends on the artist or scenario concept, yeah. Because if you do like more underground event and it's not so much. People invested money, so you can jam a bit more and involve more interactivity. But if it's really like a scenario of event where everything should be approved by big commercial companies, then it's typically pretend to be more time code based things.
And also not even approved, but more stability. Like pressing play, like there's 15,000 people walking, looking there and filmed and all that stuff. And the nerves, like we had some shows where we did everything real time, and then you're so nervous for is it going to run? Is it going to run? You run it like it does that, but still it stays technical stuff. It can crash, no matter how often you tested it. But for the real time stuff, because that's also what we like. The big advantage is that you do stuff in real time, that you can adapt to it, and things like that. With timecode stuff, it's nice, but you're designing everything in the studio. You're not in that moment. You don't feel the same thing. You don't feel the connection to the live guys because they're in another studio. So you miss that magical moment, and we really wanted to have that as well. Like that's timecode was produced, but how can you get the same effect but then
in real time? And then we're doing a lot of studies, like how does music visualization work, and like can you analyze we don't really do that, but analyze the audio and translate that into data, or use cues or triggers and things like that. So for Carl Cox, like the main aim of his show is that he's controlling everything. Like, we don't want to be a VJ doing a show. Like, he should be in charge, because he's doing like a lot of stuff live, and if you're a VJ, he does something on stage, the audio travels through the thing, comes at the VJ, he has to react to it, so we're always too late with stuff. So we wanted to make a system that reads his mixer and his Ableton and stuff, and then basically have like one hub where we translate that data. So on one hand we have his V10, he does a lot of stuff with effects and all the channels. Then we have Ableton, which you can see here, but the Ableton with the Max for Live. And then we made a small translate program to translate it into the right cues into Resolume in this case. Like, there's two operators going with him. Like, we don't do the show, we only program the system and make content. They use Resolume, so we basically translate, okay, if he does this effect, what effect does suits best with that thing in this environment? But then he's the one turning it on and off. And that's a really nice experiment. Like,
is that OSC you were using there, Roy?
Yeah. Everything with show is always OSC. Like, with we did MIDI in the first shows. There was a thing, Noisia from Groningen, drum and bass thing, and we used MIDI for that. But then MIDI, if you disconnect the cable, you have to how do you call it? Like do a handshaking stuff. And the opening night in Prague, a big drum and bass festival, and then they rolled in the desk, and just before they unplugged the cable, so 2 minutes before, or not even 1 minute before show, and then was okay, never MIDI anymore, always OC, because that this continues.
So there's a question here from IOPA in the chat about what hardware to run this system. So what were you using in terms of the technical hardware setup?
So for it depends a bit on if you do content design, so we have to generate the content, then with the bigger stages, it's a big resolution. So we take our server with us, and that had a 4090 thing for the Mysteryland thing, for instance. For this sort of stuff, this is purely data management, so this can run on anything. And also Resolume, it's playing back videos, but that's also not heavy. Like but it does depend on the like remastered, for instance. We also did that on one computer, but it's like I think there were 12 outputs, and I think 12. Huge resolution, and to run that off one computer, we needed 2 video cards, and to sync that, we needed quadro cards. So it depends, but bottom line, the more the better with everything. Like, we're always at the last, always finding the edges. Can I?
Yeah.
Shall I? Yeah. There's one thing which we are working now with, you have the data stuff from what Carl was doing. That he's controlling stuff, that's just pure the data translation. But we want to make a system that we can control multiple medium in one control system. So instead of focusing on and doing the lights and the lasers or the screens, we're doing a lot of research, like how can you design content that does both. And these were the first tests that we did, like pretty common nowadays to shoot lasers at the screen, but there's so much to explore in that field, because like, who's the master? Are you making content and the laser reacts, or are you making a laser show and the content reacts? In this case, like, it's the laser that you can draw on it. But then we went more with it, like this is for Awakenings, a big techno show in Amsterdam, in the Gashouder. And there we didn't want to make content. We wanted to make the laser operator control where to shoot, and the VJ being able to do whatever he wants. So the whole night can be evolving, can do switch different content.
So that's super flexible and super manipulative, isn't it? So that's like complicated to make a system that's got so many possibilities for another artist to control. That's kind of mind-boggling how you'd even start to make something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the core of basically our whole research. Like, how can you control like these complex systems in a simple way? And then my part is like, how can you make nice stuff out of it? And Tim, for instance, he's focusing on like, how can you make like really organic, moving, like physics, but have it digital. How can you create that real life, but then digital? And yeah, that's an endless research thing, and that's super nice that in this time like that now people got used to it, people understand it, but there's so much to explore, and there's not enough people yet to make it competitive. Like all the people like here, like it's so nice that you're in this whole bubble of makers that want to share stuff and doing this collective research all together. And then these are just tests for us to put it into practice. And the hard part about this thing was also not so much the project itself, but setting up. Again, in the festival world, you have to really quickly, like we only had like a couple of hours to calibrate everything, and that's intense. But in the end, it worked well.
So do you find yourself in between having projects and commissions? Do you guys just mess about with R&D and build little systems and see how you can make these weird little patches that could grow into something that could be used in a big project?
Yeah, I mean that's the base. I think the problem with every new evolving medium or scene or thing is that you have on one point you have the maker community, the people the artists and the people that research it, and then you have like the platform where you expose it in. But the people that run those platforms, they don't understand yet what it is, so it has to come from the makers. So we do only research smaller things that we get excited about, testing about, and we start making it, and then we have something to show, and then it goes into a bigger project. Now we're at a point that, for instance, all the festival things we're kind of getting away from, because we were at this point that the low time of build-up and all the stressful stuff is getting a bit too much. We want to focus a bit more on the quality side and have a bit more time on it, and even do more research and try to get it up. But yeah, where that will end up, I have no idea. But as long as you're passionate about it, I think it will always find a way.
We have a question from Leo in the chat. I didn't know how lasers and visuals interact. Are those time-coded?
No. That was the thing, like who's the master and who's not. In this case, the laser is the master. That shoots everywhere where the laser shoots. We get like a white square, basically a mask. We send that mask over to the VJ guys, and they can do whatever. So this stuff is all live. This is all.
Yeah. So the VJs are projecting onto a mask you've generated from the laser positions. That's kind of nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Awakenings is a techno party which they invest a lot in their crew. Like the people are really nice guys, but they always, because it's like the underground, like hours and hours, and so they start playing. Like there's no show script with all this stuff. It just evolves, and it's all about the interaction between light and visuals and techno, so dark. So yeah, and then we love that most, the real time stuff. I mean, one last thing, like a bit the essence of everything. Like we did. This is an example from a talk we did in 2019 for the summit of Touch Designer. But we still the same thing. Like you have the input, process, output, and making small little tools that you focus yourself on making in generator, generative thing. Then you're in programming mode, and then you start using it. So you then no longer go into the network, and you just play with it. You see what the options are. In most cases, you end up with so many different results that you didn't expect in the beginning. Like you could draw this stuff in Photoshop or make it, but then you already have a clear idea of what you're making, and then that's it. Now you want to make something, so you program the whole thing, and then you start playing with it, and it ends up with a total different results. And in essence, that's the nicest part of this whole field, because you're creating stuff that you didn't think of yourself that you could create, and that's magical. Like the computer becomes like a partner in the whole creative process, and that's and then if you can do that together with multiple people, super cool. So there's also like it's not made for anything. It's just an experiment that just popped out. And then you can create all this.
You've got lots of sort of encapsulated systems going on there, haven't you, I guess? Do you often find one part of a tool makes it into another tool at a later point in the future or something?
Yeah, basically everything gets reused in a different way, because you can always refactor it. It's not like in the beginning when we started, we really wanted to make like components we can use all the times, but that's like utopia. Like it always always need to adjust it a bit. But the way of thinking and the build-up stuff and the modular thing that's been there all the time.
Yeah, from my point of view, it's the most stylish stuff I ever seen produced in Touch Designer. Especially which is about like 2D style of things, but also for 3D. It's really stylish, and actually, let's say from my point of view, parametric thinking is very similar actually to the procedural approach which we used for Houdini for years, and procedural thinking which I involved in my How to Touch course, because it's about particularly the same idea: proceduralize things and make algorithms producing predictable results instead of doing results itself.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's all. It took me a while to get into that whole way of thinking, because it's different. It's different than drawing, where you put a line up and another line and you have an end result of Photoshop or After Effects. But yeah, there's no other way anymore. Like once you went down this road, it's super cool. Okay, so that's a bit the projects that I wanted to share with you guys.
Amazing, Roy. So maybe it's a moment to share to the people our plans developed in secret laboratories of Amsterdam and Berlin for years. So basically, like our plan is logically to start a new course, which will be about the parametric thinking, and particularly about the modular design in Touch Designer. So maybe, Roy, you can share the, or should I make this our page?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, so I guess you've got a really instinctive way of making great parametric art. So I guess this modularization is a key part of your workflow, isn't it? So how much of this is using custom components? Have you got, some key traditional operators that are a good starting point for a beginner to explore this?
Yeah. So we have our own template, which basically has already a camera set up there, everything that you can jump right into the creative process. Because that's the biggest challenge in touch. You're not a programmer, you're not a designer, you're not a musician, you're everything at the same time. And if you do everything at the same time, you'll go nuts. So for us, it really helps that you make small components, and even if it's not reusable, but make it into a structure according to the input, process, output thing. And then you can really focus on one thing at a time,
and then it's not complex at all. You can just build on it.
Basically, it's a time to present the page we just made today for the new course. And actually, you see right now on the screen all the crew involved, because Roy is doing the course and Fallon helping to make the structure most efficient for the teaching. And yeah, let's take a look what we have on the page. It will be relatively short course. I think I just tell from my point of view, and then I provide the word back to you. And I think it's a very cool course for even for beginners, but both for more experienced people, because first it's a lot about the topic I personally very like. It's about how to make reusable components and how to make model view controller paradigm to set up easy controllable units and make complex designs and complex systems from simple steps. But in the same time, it's about how to make a tasty, brilliant picture, which is not so easy to achieve in Touch Designer, and how we've seen from all the projects which Roy presented to us, it's like obviously strong point here. So, and yeah, okay, that is about what we were just speaking about. And on the end we have a current version of syllabus. And yeah, now I can give a microphone back to...
I think it's probably what's really exciting is being able to build a little system that maybe isn't too complex, but have that system have multiple outputs that you can then continue to explore for like 6 months in your practice. Because obviously seeing what you've done was amazing. That's like years of commitment, isn't it? But we know with Touch, it's so easy to make a little interactive procedural network that's got so many possible outputs of it. And I guess that's one of the big things we're trying to get across with this course, isn't it? That modular workflow and the ability to make it quite personal to your own artistic expression as an artist, you know? So yeah, I think the first week is a bit more about looking at that unit of approach that Roy's got down so well about that configuration of procedural workflow. But we're also going to see loads of examples of your projects as well, aren't we?
Yeah. Basically, like the workflow, like the projects, I'll explain a bit how the workflow went. So all the complex stuff, because with showing works, you always see the prettiest pictures, right? Always like big camera things, and it looks really complex. But if you break it down in small pieces, it's not that complex.
Well, I want to show
see
like
the inside of your little process box, won't we?
yeah,
to peer inside the process box, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Nice. So we've got sort of tops and chops and sops, and we've got reusing of components, encapsulation, and we can see examples of how that's been put into practice in some of those projects, which is super exciting. So I guess like that's the first session, is it? The second one's a bit more about instancing. So, I mean, how much are you using of instancing in your professional work? Is it like one of the key elements of your practice?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like my personal instancing is in touch with chops, like all the grid division stuff. Like I like to play with that. Like that's my personal work. But in the projects, like but we use shaders mostly for that. But like fish thing, like it's always like a repetition. We like a repetition of different elements, and it's
Yeah, you could do a lot of instancing, can't you? You don't necessarily have to go to GSLL all the time to make amazing artwork, but
no, not at all. Yeah.
I think like for the 30 years of computer graphics, it's like most of it important topic how to multiplicate objects and make them look different at the same time, and how which makes the things more efficient and more complex, which always catch the eye on the end. Yeah, because if we see on one nice ball, it's not too much to react on or to have emotions on. And if you have 10,000 balls looking very different and a nice proportion and textured with different textures, it looks already cool enough to make your audience be happy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I guess it's like, you know, parametric variations, isn't it? Having enough control of a dynamic system to make that variation of instancing still be really interesting and immersive. And that's like, I guess, the most thing. I'm so impressed by the work you've shown and what Stanis has done, because that's one of the keys, isn't it, to get that variation in there from complex output from a fairly simple system.
Yeah, yeah. And the Instinct is a really good approach for that, because in essence, it's really simple. There's one shape that's copied a million times, and then, but you can create like 100 million different stuff with it. So this instancing setup is basically like the main thing where we then start building stuff with.
Okay, so you have a question from Fluxley in the chat. Can this be learnt without knowledge of Python?
Yeah, we do a lot of Python and stuff, and also Python as well. Like if you start learning a programming language, it's so complex, and you look at it, it's like gibberish and ABM. But if you do it step by step and start reading it, then it's not that complex at all. So we made a couple of example files that people will get, and that does have Python. But you don't need to have Python. Like, it's the way of thinking. That's the most important. If you know the way of thinking, you can follow along.
Wow. Yeah. Do you want to do a question?
Basically, I see that Fluxley also knows what he wants to, and I don't know. For the Christmas, I think the Christmas is very soon, and we're launching the possibility to enroll in the course today. So it's like maybe best time to make you a Christmas gift. And Lucas tells some, I think, just emotions about that doesn't matter on which level of experience you are, you have still the same dilemmas about finding the control/simplicity balance.
Yeah, because you could give yourself 1 million custom parameters, can't you? But that's not really going to help on showtime and not really help the artistic direction. Too many options, maybe. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you need to have like limits like you need to have like a constraint to really be creative and do stuff. And with drawing, it's easy. You have your pen and paper. And then when you have like animations, it's a bit harder because you have time in there. But now with programming, you have everything, and with touch, you can connect every sensor and every output and stuff. So it's really easy to get lost and to get too many things.
Wow, yeah. So the third lesson, we're going to focus on rendering, aren't we? So we're going to look at some render setups and ambient occlusion and PBR. So I guess these are key parts of your workflow, aren't they, in some of that professional work you've showcased?
Yeah. Because like, everybody looks at Unreal and says like, okay, all the pretty pictures has to come from Unreal. Not saying that the render engine of Touch is the best one, because it can definitely be updated. But within that thing, like the way OpenGL and the whole render pipeline works, you can do a lot of cool stuff. You just have to know a bit of that, like what is AO, how does it work, how does PBR work, and then you can really tweak it and get some really good results.
I think also I might add something, like, because I started to make computer graphics since mid of 90s, and in that time it was not ray tracing yet, it was not reflection yet. Everything basically in that times was faked. Most of Pixar films and the huge like Matrix, all these renderings were done using fake techniques. Basically like 6 cameras rendering for reflection and writing some shaders to adjust it to make illusion of reflection. And okay, in Touch Designer, unlike Unreal or unlike any other modern renderers, we don't have a lot of tools which can provide the illusion of photorealism very easy, but that in the same moment doesn't mean we need to become a hardcore coders to make efficient, tasty renders. And what I found that even using simple Touch Designer shading pipeline and workflow, understanding a bit more on these techniques and properly using them, make a possibility to achieve good enough or even very cool pictures, images, image style and rendering, just if you understand the workflow and the tools you have. So that's from what I was seeing from the renderings Roy showed us during last 40 minutes. It was all looking very tasty. Yeah, this is most important in this thing. Doesn't matter. Does it have the possibility to render the forest in real time with reflections like in Unreal? We can achieve a good results in Touch Designer even without a big coding knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit of theory can make you dangerous, can't it? You know. So yeah, interesting comment from Jean-Francois in the chat. He likes to get his graphical goal first and then build his system and then work out what to parameterize. So I guess that, you know, Roy, have you got any thoughts about that? If that professional work, you might have a brief or you might have a, you know, an overview you're given from your client, which might define the sort of goal of the project, and then you build the system, yeah? But sometimes it's kind of fun to build the system and then find out the goal, isn't it, you know?
It's always like a 1-2, like back and forth kind of thing. Yeah.
So our final session is looking at all the control aspects of this, which I guess is pulling it all together to be able to divide, you know, utilize some of the control elements we could do from parameterization and controllers and chops and stuff like that. So you seem to have quite a few examples in your projects where you had multiple different types of input. You know, for example, you had touchscreen stuff. It looks like there was some webcam tracking. So, you know, I guess how to manage lots of multi-inputs is kind of seems to be a big part of your workflow, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also to separate, like the whole input thing is a whole project on its own as well. Like which parameter are you controlling? For instance, the Michelin project with the blobs. I think are you controlling like how big they are, the color, and where do you map it on, and that whole process is a project on its own. And then it doesn't really matter what you control. In this case, it was blobs, but you can also control like a grid or whatever. And then with the last part, I wanted to show like how you can make really complex stuff if you divide it up, basically, and separate the input from your patch.
Fantastic. And there's obviously some overview there about external sources, maybe living outside TD and building presets, which is probably going to be super fun to mess about with, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, but that's also still the process. We're in the middle of it. We didn't find the perfect preset system yet. Like there's a couple of things out there now. You do that in Touch. Like Derry made a really good one with TD Morph, and Wieland made one, and yeah, there's tons of people that made stuff, but we didn't find our perfect way yet. But that's the ultimate goal. Because once you can make presets, then you can mix with those again, and then with one button you can control like 6 million parameters. But it's complex. We're not there yet.
So we have one question from Jean-Francois, or some.
Well, that was one we just mentioned. That was useful. Is there any more questions for the chat?
Yeah, basically we are showed everything what was like in plan, but we still are open for the questions if you have.
So what's your next project, Roy? Have you got something you guys are working on at the moment? Is there anything you can sort of disclose to us that we could come and visit or see in Europe at some point?
Yeah, well, we're continuing to work on the laser thing and the Colcox and the Grandacon. Those are just ongoing stuff. But now we really want to dive into our own projects, basically making a system that lives on its own, like a modular thing that makes decisions on its own, and just flood like getting emotion into code, basically. And that's going to be our personal research art project that we want to focus on, and we're super excited about that. Again, in nature, you have like the simple rules, but they can evolve into really complex systems. And if we can get like a system like that, and then hook that up to a laser installation or to whatever, that seems fun.
It's self-generative.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also the hardest, because let's say the grid stuff, like when you design with Photoshop, you have control over every step. When you're designing with like a system base, you have some control, but how do you make sure that every seed is a good looking picture? And that's really complex. And then making a system that controls that gets even more complex, but interesting. Next steps.
So Shandor writes, like, if it's funny how we are all different and have different ways of thinking and doing, still have kind of common threads and way to structure ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's I mean, now there's not, like with motion graphics, there's a workflow in the commercial scene. Like there's a way you set up a project, and you learn it in art school and stuff like that. But with this, there's no one way. Like, because it's so complex. At one point, I'm sure there will be one approach, but at this point, everyone is doing their own, because we need structures, and every studio and every person is coming up with their own. And at one point, like I think, like through the summits and through that whole community thing, we'll find like the one way that works in most cases. But until then, like everybody's doing the same. But it's fun because it's hard. Like everybody has to go over this bump, and that I think creates like a nice community. We're all passionate people that got enough motivation to get over that bump and feel really strong about it and just continue doing it.
We have one more question from Pavel Zmunchila. Did you create a physics particle simulation system for the festival Cube by yourself?
Yeah. All the stuff, like it's all. I mean, like Tim does all the mathematical, but he really loves to research all the physics and mathematical equations. Try to apply that into shaders, and then we apply that into projects. And there's I had a big discussion with him, like what was. Like learning stuff, you can read a lot of books and you can get a lot of info inside and take that and remix it, or you can try to understand everything yourself and build everything yourself, and that goes way slower, but then you really understand the whole process, and we like to do that. We like to just take one part and just build on top. And
here's a good question for you from our friend Packet 12. I would like to ask both Gerritsen brothers what the brothers' greatest strength is. So what do you think your brother's greatest strength is? Because he's a bit more of the coder, isn't he? He does a bit more of the GL. You're more of a designer.
Yeah. I mean, there was like when we started, like he was designing and I was programming, but then really quickly we switched. I think his, what I just said. I think it's one of, like he really wants to understand something, so it's not taking something half-baked and then using it. Like he cannot use something which he doesn't understand in his code, which is really good, because then you start learning it and then you can apply it in different ways as well. And his great, like his way of abstract thinking is really good, and I think my way of the feel of design, what I want to push in. And together we built that stuff. But it's not only us, and all the projects. I mean, we also work a lot with Darian and with Nixat. Like we're brothers, it starts with here, but
Is there quite a bit of overlap in your team? Are you sort of overlapping a bit of roles a bit, or do you have a different approach where everyone can just contribute anything they think is a strong idea, or?
Yeah, we work like there has to be like a leader in the things. We don't have one leader. We don't believe in a pyramid thing where there's one art director that decides everything. But for instance, like on the code base, Tim is the end boss of the code stuff, and then we can all contribute ideas and stuff. But he, in the end, like if there's something, he takes the decision. I do the same thing with the design. Rogier is doing that for the project management and the money side.
So Pactor 12 says, I love you guys, you're my favourite brothers. Oh.
I agree.
So a question from Leo, that was projected, or the cube was made of LEDs. So the cube thing, was it an LED wall or is it projected?
No, all the festival things, all LEDs. Because the projection stuff in the daytime, that's not possible. Plus, it's really hard to do and lights and projectors. That doesn't really mix well. So it's all LED. Yeah.
Okay, let's give our friends online to write some question more, just in case. But I want to use this time to say that for now is launch date of the course is 11/11, which is, let's say, in 3 weeks. So take it and learn from the best brothers on the planet, at least in Touch Designer.
And yeah, we've got like about an hour and a half a week for 4 weeks, isn't there? And it's a great time to see some of Roy's work, but also to enter a discussion with everybody who's on the course. And we're all practitioners, aren't we? We can all learn from each other. So, you know, it'd be an interesting experience to sort of build on ideas and share them.
So I want to say thanks to everyone who was with us today. Doesn't matter where you are on the planet. It was Person in Touch number 6, and I hope that really concept which is working, because you had the possibility kind of virtually touch the person, because it's not really about the work but about the personalities. And we're happy to see all of you here.
I think there's one final question about East Coast friendly time zones. So this is in real time, isn't there? But the recordings will be available to watch if you can't attend?
Sure, we record everything, and typically latest 1 day later it uploaded in our LMS system. It will be also a student chat behind, so chat is working 24/7. And typically we do classes around 7 p.m. set, same time like stream now, yeah. So, but it's discussable after the group will gather. We can discuss the sweet spot which is effective for most of students.
Yeah, because East Coast is like 6 hours behind, isn't it? So it's,
yeah, I think it should work. It's like still day. I mean, not really early morning, not really late.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Thank you, Roy. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Fallon.
Thank you for having me
here and supporting. Thank you, Roy.
Yeah. Thank you. And thanks, Ed, for getting that. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.